Okay, so we've got all our applique done on the outside except for this star in the center. And before we start, I do like to clip all these inside edges. Those are the inside corners. Those are called cleavages. And you're going to just clip down and clip through the pencil line. So up and clip just through the pencil line. Just through the pencil line. I'm going to turn it just a little bit here. We're going to clip just through the pencil line. One more. And go just through the pencil line. Okay, so we've got all our cleavages clipped. And then it's best to, I'm going to come back here a little bit. It's best to start on in the center of a leg and work to a point. And that way, after you get all the way around, you're finishing up here at a cleavage, which is easier to do than if you were to start in the middle of this leg here, work through, then you're finishing at this start point. And it's harder after everything's sewed down. It's just a little bit harder to finish at the start point. So I do like to start in the middle of a leg and work out to a start point to begin. And so to start, remember we're going to bring our needle up between the background and the motif and come up just inside the pencil line. Okay, and then we're going to give it a little turn under here. You can finger press it and then you're ready to go. Remember, you're going to be at least even with that stitch or just behind so that you don't see your stitch. And stitch along here. And then as you get out here towards at the end of this start point, you're going to have to start taking smaller stitches out at the start point, because what happens is all this seam allowance gets shoved over here up against this seam and it'll pooch out in between your stitches if your stitches are too big. So we're going to shorten up our stitch length out here at the point. And then that, I'm going to maybe do one more. And the very last stitch is just, it has to come up inside this pencil line that goes back the other direction. Okay, so there's my thread and I'm just inside the pencil line because you want the pencil line to turn under. All right, so now before we start going down this other leg, we're going to come in here and we're going to grade back the seam. Lift that piece of glue. So there's our seam allowance, and we're going to just, so your stitches are right along in here, and we're going to just cut that back. You cut it back fairly severely, at least along the point. And then this is still a little chubby out here. I'm going to cut some of that seam allowance off. Okay. And then you've still got this last stitch, and I like to flatten off. I know this sounds odd, but you're going to flatten off the point. It's going to square off that point, but you've got this thread here, so when you tug it out, it's going to sharpen it off. So we're going to flatten it off just to get it turned under, and then you bring this side in like that. And right now, yes, your start point looks square, but you give a little tug on your thread, tuck that little seam allowance under a little bit sharper, and then you end up with a nice sharp point. And then again, you're going to take the first couple stitches are going to be small to stabilize that. Now, figures, I get a knot. One, two little small ones. Get my point stabilized. Then I'm going to come down here to my cleavage and I'm going to just run my, oops, except I've got some glue there, I got to lift. I'm going to come down to the cleavage, turn this leg. Guess it's the vine right there. There we go. And again, I like to look, I lay it down, and you want your start point leg to look nice and straight. So then I finger press it, and I'm ready to go again. Okay, I'm going to stitch along here. It'll take me just a minute. Got to get down here to this cleavage. On the straightaway, you can take bigger seams, but again, coming up to the cleavage, I want you to shorten down your stitch length a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to fold this back so we can really see where we're going. There's where we've clipped into. Take another. All right, and then the last stitch that comes into that cleavage is going to come in just a little bit deep, like about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and so we're going to pull that through. This stitch you will see. So you're in here, and it's doing a little handkerchief roll. We're going to go between the background and the motif and come up right behind that stitch that we just took. So you're not in the background. So once again, this stitch is deep. You're taking your needle between the background and the motif. You're coming up right behind that stitch you just took. And then when you pull this back, you're going to pull it back into, and it rolls those few little threads that you clipped back, sort of like a handkerchief roll. And then that stabilizes at your clip where you've clipped. And then you're ready to go. You can fold this point right down, make sure it's nice, that leg of the star is nice and straight, and then you're good to go again. You're off and running. Smaller stitches at the other side of the cleavage, and then you can lengthen out and you're good to go. All right, so there you go. Those are the 2 tricks that we have for stars. Just be sure to narrow down your stitches at the start point. You're going to grade that seam down underneath. Maybe have to take a little of the outside seam off. Use your needle to shove that seam allowance up against this seam. And then we're going to sew down here to the cleavage. This one stitch at the cleavage comes in a little bit deep, and you go take an additional stitch, come right behind, and do a little handkerchief roll at the cleavage to secure those few threads where you've clipped. So that's all there is to star points. So thank you very much.